Welcome to the In-Flight podcast, brought to you by the Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, the podcast for all things general aviation in Canada. Hello and welcome back to the COPA In-Flight podcast. This episode is on aviation insurance and COPA's new Aviators Canada Insurance Program. I'm joined by Caleb Winterburn, the head lead of the COPA program at Covalen. Caleb has been in the aviation insurance industry for 14 years. He's done 20,000 policies for aircraft, helicopters and drones, and is also a commercial fixed-wing and helicopter pilot whose passion is to get pilots into aircraft they actually want to fly. Caleb, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm definitely looking forward to this podcast today and be able to talk with the members and explain the new Aviators Canada Insurance Program with them.
Absolutely. So we've got members that have questions. We've got members that want to know more, which is why we're sitting down today. So we've got a few questions for you. The first one being, how does the Aviators Canada Insurance Program differ from other insurance programs out there?
That's definitely a great question. So I like to always just give a little bit of a backstory of how we got to this point. So we've been working with COPA, with the members, the board of directors over the last 2 years on this. And basically in the background, we went through every single aircraft insurance policy that is in Canada at this time. And we basically put it on an Excel spreadsheet so that we could align what one policy had in the coverages compared to what the other one, compared to the next one. And then basically went back to the insurance companies and put together a new package that not only matched all those coverages that were on there, but actually increased the limits as well as adding extra things on the policy. And so after 2 years later, we were able to come up with a new COPA enhancement endorsement coverage or package. And the reason why I personally like this so much is, for myself being a pilot, I was trying to think when I'm flying an aircraft, what type of coverage would I want if I was unfortunately to have an accident? And so, for example, if you have a float plane, but then in the winter you take off the floats and you have them in your hangar and you're flying, and one day your hangar burns down and your floats get destroyed. Well, this policy automatically covers up to $25,000 worth of spares for your floats while they're not attached to your aircraft. So these are little things, as well as for example, headsets and avionics. If you were flying your float plane and it was to sink and you were to lose all your nice Bose headsets, this policy covers up to $10,000 worth of coverage. And for certified aircraft, it even covers liability for after you sell the aircraft for up to 1 year. So if somebody was flying that aircraft and they're like, I only crashed my aircraft because of something that you did, and they want to bring you into a lawsuit, this policy even has up to $1 million for this type of coverage.
Awesome. You sort of answered this question, but are you seeing any trends in terms of where the program is exceeding the needs of our members?
Over the last 80 days of doing this new program, we received over 900 aircraft insurance applications, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of new aircraft insurance policies. So we've been able to see where the program is excelling and where it needs to be able to be worked on. And it's awesome because some of the times the price may be slightly high, or maybe we need this. And the members have been coming back to us and working with us on helping get some of the policies more in line where it needs to be for the certain type of coverage that they have. But overall, with regards to doing the aircraft insurance policies, I would say 80% or higher, the members have been extremely happy with the new policy that they've received.
That's awesome. And you seem to have coverage for an awful lot of aircraft that are being sent your way. What's next for the program? What are you working on to add on? What other coverages are you looking to add?
So currently at this time right now, we're writing all aircraft and all ages across the country. And people are finally able to get hull coverage again for their gyrocopter. And then we've been working on the next phase of this is to reduce the rates for paragliders, paramotors, and basic ultralight aircraft. And so that's definitely the next part of the project, as well as we continue to increase the customer service levels with this, we have a 5-year plan where we're going to make aircraft insurance so seamless for individuals that they'll be able to get a policy basically either in 60 minutes or less, or even possibly be able to get it on the weekend. If, for example, they forgot to get their aircraft insurance on Friday and they're like, it's an absolutely beautiful day out and it's sunny and I want to be able to get it. Well, we're trying to make it so that they are able to get the insurance when they need it so that they can just get back into the skies.
That's awesome. There's, I know when this first came out, there was an awful lot of questions from people about coverages and things. One of the concerns was, is there coverage for the States? Is there coverage for COPA members wanting to fly their aircraft into, say, Alaska on the policy? Are you able to kind of talk about the coverages there?
Yeah, so we had like a little bit of minor hiccup when we first started, and we always like transparency and to be honest with everybody. So on our quotes on the main global aerospace insurance policy, it actually excludes Alaska. And then we have a second endorsement that actually adds Alaska onto the policy as well as other territorial limits. So a lot of people were reading just this thinking Alaska was included and not seeing in the fine print that we've actually added it back on. So we amended our quote so it just shows that Alaska is included on there, as well as the continental United States, and it includes Mexico. And the interesting thing about Mexico is a lot of people travel to Mexico and they say, oh, well, it's included on my policy, so I'm good to go there. But they don't realize that they should actually purchasing a Mexican insurance policy that is in Spanish. And the awesome thing about global aerospace is they automatically, when you request it, will include that at no extra cost. Now, if you were to go to another insurance company, they would actually make you buy that separate policy, and it usually costs between $100 to $300 US. So it's definitely a nice extra add-on that will protect you when you're flying to Mexico.
That's awesome. And we definitely have a lot of members that want to fly further afield. But for those just starting out their aviation journey, COPA has a good number of COPA student members. Can a student pilot get coverage?
Yeah, exactly. So student pilots are able to get insurance under this package, especially whether they buy a Cessna 172 or 182. And so a lot of misconception is people say, oh, you need to start on a 150 or you need to start on a 172. But under this new policy program, if you're willing to do the proper training, you can potentially start your training on a Mooney aircraft on there. So there's a lot more flexibility, and that people need to understand that if they want to just go buy the aircraft that they actually want to fly and train on it, they can do that. And sometimes I actually recommend that because you really get used to that Mooney after 100 hours and you've signed off with your PPL and you're flying it, instead of just getting your PPL on a Cessna 172 and then jumping to the Mooney. So I'm definitely not opposed to it. And the new policy definitely is inclusive to pilots, student pilots that want to get a higher performance type of aircraft.
So now, just a little juxtaposition for a minute. We're talking about people at the start of their aviation journey. We've got an awful lot of members that are lifetime members, those who've been flying for decades and have a lifetime of experience flying, and are COPA members. Is age really a factor when it comes to your policies? How does it? How does, say, an older pilot be affected by this program?
So we really like to say from the span, whether you're 14 and you're a student pilot trying to get your license, you are actually able to get coverage under the policy. And the other day I helped a 14-year-old that was just getting a student pilot permit, and he was flying the aircraft and it was all fine. But then we expand that all the way to whether they're more of a mature pilot and maybe they're in their 70s or their 80s. And they're wondering, oh, is the insurance company going to stop insuring me if I want to fly my aircraft? And the way that we put together this package is that as long as they're able to get a valid medical, they should be able to get insurance for their aircraft. We need to remember it's not the early 2000s or the 90s, it's 2025. And if they're willing to do the proper things, they should be able to get aircraft insurance so that they can fly their aircraft. The thing that we always do like to recommend for pilots that are in their 70s or 80s is that they should make sure that they fly at least 10 or 20 hours a year so that they remain current. It's definitely a big thing. And the reason why I'm such a promoter for more mature pilots being able to fly their aircraft if they have a valid medical is normally they really look after their health because they care about that, as well as they maybe have time on their hands, so they're willing to do more check rides and stuff. So all in all, looking over the stats over the years, if you're a more mature pilot, it doesn't mean that there's more accidents. So as long as you're being careful, you should be able to get aircraft insurance.
Awesome. So on this podcast, I always like to ask questions on kind of people's flying background. You've been flying for a while. You're a commercially rated fixed wing and helicopter pilot. Also being in the insurance industry, do you have any tips, any advice for those that are just looking to get into aviation and getting to start flying, not just from a personal flying perspective, but also from an aviation insurance perspective?
Yeah, so over those 20,000 aircraft insurance policies, I have seen a lot over the years. I've seen ones where people had a bad attitude, or on the flip side, they had a really humble attitude. And so if you're just getting into flying, I definitely recommend just always have a good attitude about training and about willing to work with a flight instructor to be able to get onto that aircraft. Because if you always keep that attitude, it actually will obviously, number one, help prevent having an accident, but it will allow you to be able to continue to upgrade the aircraft that you want to fly in, and the insurance company is more willing to work with you. And I have seen over the years, unfortunately, where people were not willing to do the training and they did crash, and unfortunately they've lost their lives. And I know when in the office, when I see something like that, it affects everybody in our aviation insurance office, because we care about these pilots so much and we hate to see when this actually happens. And so that's why I say just stay humble, and it will help you so much in your aviation career, and you'll be able to fly to places that you never expected, meet people that you never expected. We really do have a great community here in Canada, and I love seeing it each and every day and talking with everyone.
Just on that, you raised kind of a bit of a safety point. Are you able to speak to the importance of transition training when it comes to new type and how that links into the insurance program?
Yeah, so I'm able to talk about it with regards to transitioning to a different aircraft. A lot of people, they say, okay, well, I'm transitioning from this aircraft to this aircraft, but it's very similar make and model, so I don't need to go for a check ride. But I have seen it where somebody jumped from a similar make and model and they didn't know a little function of the aircraft. And in one case about 10 years ago, there was a guy with 3 passengers in the airplane, and unfortunately he did have an accident and passed away. And if he had just done one check ride, he would have known that he had to pull out the carb heat just a little bit more on certain type of temperature for that day. And so obviously ferry pilots jump in airplanes all the time and they ferry them. But for the average pilot, if you're going to a different aircraft, it's always great to be able to go get a check ride. And the thing is even though I was flying a Cessna 150 for many years, every single year I got a check ride with that aircraft, because not only did it help me feel safer, it also allowed me to learn something new, because I always would try to pick a different flight instructor, learn a little bit from them, learn a little bit from this flight instructor, and it always helped me improve in my flying skills.
Excellent. You mentioned you've had 20,000 different policies over the years. Are you able to speak to any particularly interesting aircraft that you've been able to insure or get policies on?
Doing these 20,000 aircraft insurance policies over the last 14 years, I've got to insure many cool aircraft, such as L-29 Delphin, L-39 Jet, as well as a Nanchang, a Yak 50, a Harvard, et cetera, et cetera. And I always get to see some interesting situations when either other brokers are trying to get pilots onto these aircraft. For example, I remember about 12 years ago, a guy was trying to get onto a Vans RV3 aircraft. And many of you may know a Vans RV3 aircraft only has one seat in the aircraft. So if you were to go fly that aircraft, how would you possibly get a check ride from someone? Well, another broker and the insurance company wanted a flight instructor to come down to the airport and watch this individual with a lawn chair and binoculars and do 10 hours of takeoffs and landings in this Vans RV3 aircraft. And so they ended up calling me, and I said, well, why don't we just work with the insurance company and try to make a plan for you? And what we ended up doing was we found somebody that had a similar Vans, like an RV7, and they went up and did some training in that Vans RV7. And then when they were ready to fly the Vans RV3, we just increased the deductible for the individual, because at that point, there's really out of our control if something happens, but at least we got them to do the training. And this way the person transitioned to their Vans RV3 and they never had an accident with that aircraft. So it's just like some interesting things that I've seen over the years. And this was definitely one of them.
Awesome. So we're talking about interesting aircraft and helicopter types. Is drone insurance something that Covalen offers?
Yeah, so for myself, I insured the first drone that I insured was 2011. So we definitely do drone insurance across Canada. We have many different markets to be able to do it. And I remember working and seeing Transport Canada work through the phases of the Gazette from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 with in visual line of sight to beyond visual line of sight. And it's just amazing that how far drones have come over the years. And so we definitely been a part of it, and we are continuing to be a part of it and insure drones across Canada.
Amazing. is there anything you think that people should know about this program? Anyone coming into this for the first time that you think should know about the Aviators Canada Insurance Program?
So there's two things that I want to briefly talk about is that we really tried to put together a full policy so that you are protected in the event that you actually have an accident. Because the thing is we're the brokers and you're the pilot, and you're not supposed to know every single thing that you're like thinking, if I have an accident, this is what I'm supposed to be covered for. And that's where we have protected our clients and the COPA members in this wording in there. And then if you ever have any questions like, what happens if I overinsure my hull value on my aircraft, or what happens if I underinsured, or what liability limit should I have, or if I plan on going outside the territorial limits, how do I add them to the policy? Or if I have a friend that wants to fly my aircraft, how can I get them on the insurance? So these are a lot of little things that we love to answer and help people, because sometimes what happens is pilots, they love to talk, and they're at the pilot clubhouse and they say, oh, you can never get on that aircraft, or your friend can never fly your aircraft. And then it slowly just gets passed around and eventually it's across Canada. And so this is where we're trying to break through those myths and trying to help people actually get onto the aircraft so that they can fly it. But the second thing, and I know you didn't ask this question, but this is one thing that I really want to talk with pilots across Canada. When you're trying to get a quote for an aircraft, let's say it's a unique aircraft, or it's in the middle of nowhere, and you get a quote back and it says, subject to a checkout with a qualified flight instructor prior to flying solo. And you're thinking to yourself, like, how am I going to get a flight instructor all the way out here to be able to fly this aircraft? What a lot of people don't know is that if you get a qualified commercial pilot, or you get a qualified private pilot with a lot of insurance companies, as long as they actually have hours on it and they're in the last 12 months, the person can probably check you out in that aircraft. And for a lot of cases, I've actually had the seller, I get his pilot report with his hours, and I send it to the insurance company, and they agree to check out that pilot. So when you first see that, oh, subject to a checkout with a qualifying flight instructor, it's not the end of the world. We can find a solution for you. And this is actually how we get a lot of people checked out in the aircraft so that they can fly. And we have to think about it. And we love our flight instructors across Canada. They're working very hard, getting more pilots in the sky. But sometimes they don't know how to fly at Harvard, or they don't know how to fly Cessna 185 on floats. And so sometimes it's better to just get another qualified commercial pilot that has make and model time to be able to do those check rides. So the point that I always like to make is that if you're willing and you have a good attitude and you're willing to maybe increase the deductible or whatever the case is, we always want to come up to have a correct solution so that you can be able to fly your aircraft.
Amazing. This is really exciting. I think it's a great step forward for COPA, and we're really glad to be making this journey with Covalen. Caleb, thank you so much for sitting down and speaking with us on this. I'm sure people can go to copanational.org and see the details, and there's the application program to be able to send in an application for the insurance. You personally are pretty big on social media. People can find you personally and follow you on the channels if they want to. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to say quickly, thank you for the board of directors for COPA. I think things are moving and things are going in the right place. And I'm just so excited to see how we're going to help out with sponsorships. The next couple of years is going to be a lot of fun. And I just see this definitely going places with people.
Excellent. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the In-Flight podcast. You can find us at copanational.org. Give us a call on 613-236-4901, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Safe flying.